of the things I have to remember when I'm shooting videos on my tablet here is that it only has a limited cache. And so one of the previous videos I shot here a little while ago, it kind of cut off in the middle, and because there's no light to tell me that the thing is shooting or not, I ended up talking to myself for about 10 minutes. So what I've been doing here is I have been actually stitching these plates together and continuing to form as I go. As you can see, what I did is I had taken this one plate and I had transferred my stitch pattern. Now what I'll do is I'll center it using the actual pattern so that I get a good look at, so I don't mess up where I'm going to put my lines. So I'm doing that, and again just really quickly transferring my holes through using my awl all the way around. And of course, no matter how good we are with our little stitch marker, it does tend to be a little bit unique with each one, and even though there's a lot of tolerance in the holes, once we punch them through, this is by far the best way to make sure you get a good match as you're working your pieces. So after marking that, I basically went downstairs, I punched those holes out, brought it back upstairs, and then began working. Now what I will do with this piece is I will continue to work the shape as I go, which is what I've done on this piece. And as I go, that's what I mean is by stitching it on. So I'm going to be stitching it on. As I'm stitching it on, I am of course shaping my piece. As you can see, it's beautifully pliable right now. So right now I'm just finishing up. I've done it's a single strand stitch all the way around. And I could do this one of two ways. I could actually run 2 needles at a time, running these through, or I can go back and forth just using the single needle method, which is what I'm doing here. So I'm going to finish up this line, and as I'm going, I'm taking the time to go back, work on my tooling a little bit more as I go and with them shaping, because as I'm straightening things out, things will distort. This whole attachment process is about a 15 to 20 minute exercise for me. And I'm trying to hide the stitching as much as I can. So what I've done here, as you can see, the stitching I've basically buried the stitching in. It's hidden into the stitches as I go. There's no knots. And once I get to the end here, what I'll do is I'll back my thread underneath the previous stitches and hide it in. Now the next thing I can do is, once I've got this thing together and dry, and after I've waxed it, because I will be waxing this to seal it, I can add a bit of foam into this void. And what I'll do is it'll be a pad that'll sit there, and then I'll take a softer piece of leather, like just a light piece of leather, and I will stitch that on. That will hold this in that piece of foam in place and add a little more cushion to the elbow, a little more protection. And there was somebody who asked me online here just a little while ago. He was asking, the purpose of the voids. Was it to help with the shape of the elbow? Was it to help with the weight? Was it did it allow more room? And the answer is yes, it does to all of those. And again, it also adds me a little bit of space that if I want to take it up another notch, I'll build the padding for the arm, for the elbow right in there. And you can do that with the forearm too, which is what we'll be doing in a while. I'm just about done on this. And I will, as you can see, which one is it? Oh dear, I've distorted the shape of my letter. Well, it's wet, I can do that. It's a long way away from having a memory, and by memory what I mean is that it will there will come a point, just do one more, there will come a point when the leather will not flex anymore back and forth. It will hold whatever shape it's been given. Yeah, I'm getting caught on my own work here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back here, and I'm just going to take my needle. Oops, I'm not going to do that. Let me catch one of my awls here. I'm just going to make a little more room so I can get my thread underneath here, as you can see. Because I don't want the thread to come loose if I can help it, right? So, I'll get one. I'll probably throw it under another one there. There we go, two. Little handy Chinese scissors. Give it a snip. There we go, gone. So now, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start refining my shape, because I want to get it out so that it's this nice bold shape here. I mean, we've already got it happening, it's already starting, so, but now I've got things to work on so I can do that a little better. So I mentioned earlier taking this guy here, this little tool, wonderful little guy. Now what I can do is I can sit there and I can see my line here and I can see a line there. I can start to work those a little bit more, give them a little more detail, push them in, and just like a piece of clay, or plasticine, or molding clay, or whatever, I can start shaping this the way I want it, right? Start maneuvering it into the position I want it to be in. And if I was working in metal, I'd be using hammers and things to do this, but of course not quite in the same way. But the idea is very much the same. Now, I've got that starting to happen, so what I'll do is I'll use this in behind. I'll grab my handy dandy little beveling tool here too, and I can, you know, just like working clay, I'll just start to shape it, change the pattern, and as the leather dries, it will start, the fibers in the leather will start to become locked in each other. You don't have to be this fancy. I could just leave this plate solid if I wanted to, and not bother coloring it, or not coloring it, what am I saying? Changing it in any way, shape, or form. I'm not saying I can't color it. You know, it's very, I could take different dyes, dye each of these panels a different color. You know, you can do all sorts of wonderful things, right? So, but I think you're getting the idea. I'm going to just keep working this piece, and working it into the shape I want. You can see that it is starting to take its form as we go along here. So the next stages after this point, once we get it into its shape, and while it's still relatively pliable, we'll get this other one done. Now what I'm going to do too is I'm going to start resting this on a curved surface so that it will dry in that position and it will get its form the way I want it. Now I've got two other pieces of leather here that are already cut. What I'm going to need to do is punch my holes along the edges. This is going to be the outside connecting plate, which is this one here. And then this narrower band that you see, right, that's going to be my inside connecting plate. It's slightly narrower. What that will do is it will lock this from being, it won't be as flexible like as it would be on just the one. They will reinforce each other. All right? And it'll also give it, you know, a substantial amount of leather to run right over the point of the elbow, so that if you do catch those shots across the elbow, there's a little bit more protection there. Okay? So anyway, that's where we are right now. I think that's probably where we're going to leave it for the day. So that's the end of the tooling section, tooling and shaping. Segment 3, Part 3. Till next time.